Okay, we got Ray Michael here from New Jersey. Can't fly in because of the corona, a little bit of anxiety. And you're here.
Not a fan of planes.
Yeah, not a fan of planes, especially right now.
Yeah.
So, you got some crazy, interesting stories that we'll go into in other episodes, but this one is on Brian C. Parker and Operation Raw Deal, the biggest steroid bust in, I think, U.S. history.
At the time, it was the biggest in history.
At the time, okay.
Right.
So now, and you were along for the whole ride. You weren't involved in it, but you were there for everything.
Right. I was firsthand knowledge. I was there for probably deeper than anyone else in terms of the day-to-day, seeing what his life was like at the time and the bust.
Okay, and then how did you meet Brian? How did you first meet Brian?
Right, so I met Brian when I was 14 or 15. He was my brother's neighbor. My brother lived with our father at the time. I lived with our mother. And, where my brother lived at the time was a tiny little neighborhood. And so all the kids knew each other. And, Brian would, if I went up there to see my brother, he'd be there. Or if my brother came down here, sometimes he'd come. And when I was about 17, my brother moved in with me down where I lived, and with our mother, and Brian kind of like migrated down here as well. He ended up moving in with a friend of ours, and so Brian, he's been pretty much my best friend since we were kids. Obviously, me, my brother, and him, and a couple other close friends always hung out. But me and Brian did a lot of things together, and me and him kind of hung out more than the rest of them. So I probably know Brian better than anyone in the world, if you want to be honest.
So he had a county case, then he had a a misbranding case, then it was a steroid case.
Right.
No. It was the
this was his second case.
Yeah,
the one we're going to discuss.
The county case, and then it went steroids. Then it was misbranding. Now it's analog. So we're on the second one.
Right. So yeah. So what happened was, and I would have to go back in time, which I'm not going to do yet because you and I are going to get into some of my stuff on another one. But just to give you a timeline, me and Brian had a case together. He was my co-defendant in a state case back in 2005. When that happened, he actually had a warrant at the time. We both did. I didn't know it. We had an idea it might be coming, but we didn't know that they had it already. And he ended up getting his car died on the side of the road, and a state trooper pulled up to see if he needed help. And when they ran his name, he ended up having a warrant. Well, he also had steroids in the car at the time, so he caught a steroid charge on top of the warrant that he had with me. And I ended up hiding out in a abandoned house for a couple weeks.
Really?
Until I actually turned myself in on that case. During that case, me and Brian actually stopped talking. It wasn't really intended, but I was under the impression that he was testifying against me. They had offered him a deal to testify against me, and he took the deal. Without getting into too much detail, when it came down to it, he actually helped me. So he kind of took the deal just to get the deal and make things look legit. I'll be honest with you, actually, he wasn't even lying. When he helped me, he was telling the truth, but it wasn't the truth that the prosecutors wanted him to tell. So he stopped talking to me to kind of really make it believable, but I didn't know this at the time. A couple years down the road, me and him become friends again. We end up moving in together, actually. And by this time, he had become the biggest steroid dealer in the country. And so when we moved in together, I was not involved in what he was doing in terms of like, he did it all himself. Like, I was there. Did I know what he was doing? Yeah. Did I know how big it was? Not really, because I wasn't in that world. So I didn't know like he was the biggest in the country until he got popped. But I did see, his day-to-day business and mailing out packages. And at some point he actually, we ended up moving into a really nice apartment together, and he actually kept the original apartment, and it actually became a factory, literally. He had a 2 bedroom apartment that was completely full of shipping materials. Like when you walked in the living room, there was hundreds of boxes for shipping, packaging tape, plastic bags, pre-made labels. I mean, just it was an actual factory. I mean, really, it was a it's a word I'm looking for. It was like a drug lab and a factory. And
Now, is
actually,
he
it
doing
culminated.
tablets at this point, or is he at the
Say,
top?
say that again.
Is he doing the tablets at this point, or is he
Right.
doing
So
capsules?
prior to that, he was doing caps where he would actually manually make. It was a thing that would separate capsules, and he would pour the powder in, fill it, put them together, close them, pop them out, put them in bottles. He actually would. He had plastic that he'd melt to the top, like real professional, like you'd see in a store. He'd label them real nice and ship them out. He started making so much money that at one point he actually flew to Florida and he purchased 2 or 3, I don't remember, um, pill presses, actual machines that made pills like Tylenol, like a real pill. Um, and he drove back in a U-Haul. Um,
Yeah, I heard that story. So he went down to Fort Lauderdale. He
right.
got 2 of them. He got 2 tab presses. He had a guy with him that prior to taking him had got nailed with 2 ounces of coke and a gun, I believe. Well,
Yeah.
he flipped, but Brian didn't know that he had flipped.
Right.
So they go down and get the tab presses, pick him up in Fort Lauderdale, drive him in the U-Haul back to Florida. And while Brian's driving the U-Haul back, this kid's going in the back to take a nap, but he's getting the serial number off of the tab press machine and, GPS location of where it's going, what the tab press is, the whole nine. So, and I remember him saying to me, he was like, this kid keeps going in the back and sleeping. I don't understand why he doesn't sleep in the fucking front. Well, he was going back there to work off his coke
Right.
and gun charge, and that's what
Right.
really. I mean, he would have got hit either way because he got too big,
Without
but
a doubt.
that just sped things up. So
Right.
so now he
And
gets
as
the
you
the tab presses back to where you guys are at, right?
Right. So I remember him pulling up. We lived in at the time, probably the most upscale neighborhood and not even a neighborhood, the most upscale apartments in the entire city. And they were brand new. We were the first people to live in it. And there was a parking garage. And I remember him pulling into the parking garage in a U-Haul and like popping the back and being like, hey, look at these pill presses, you know? And I remember they weighed hundreds and hundreds of pounds, maybe even 1,000. I mean, it was a lot, and it was hard to drag them up the stairs to the other apartment, to the old apartment, which became the work apartment.
You told me that
Um,
that those presses were Vanguard mass tablet press machines. They did like 10,000 an hour, 10,000
so
tablets an hour.
what I remember distinct about them is they didn't look new, and they actually had a wheel on them, I think, that spun, and the wheel would spin and like cause the pressure that would pop the caps. Um, I didn't
Tablets.
see them work much. Like I said, I wasn't really involved. Like I said, I knew what he was doing. I was around, um, but that was only a few weeks before he got popped. I mean, it reached that level, and then within weeks, I remember. I remember my well, let's put it this way, he was making a lot of money. I think on a average month he was making about 50,000 a month, and probably upwards of 75 to 100,000 on a good month. I remember he had
But I think when
yeah,
he got the tab press machines for the amount of time that he had it, he was making 200,000. It was like 150,000. I think he said a week. A week.
that
Once
very
he
well
had
could have
the,
been.
the tabs.
The thing about Brian that
Now
people have
that's
to
what he told me.
realize,
So I don't know. You know him
Brian
better than me.
hides money from like I'm his best friend in the world, and if he's making 100 grand a month, he's telling me he's making 10 grand a month.
Yeah,
That's how
he's
Brian
one of
is.
those guys, right? Yeah.
Right. And, I never really benefited from it. Like, it's not like, my friend was balling out, so I am too. Unfortunately, he's not that kind of friend. But I guess in a positive light for that, I didn't end up getting arrested. So I guess I'm thankful that he was like that. Um, you know, uh, we were followed everywhere by feds. I didn't know that at the time, and I'll be honest, they're good because the kind of person I am, I'm always looking over my shoulder. I'm always watching
So
who's
so
driving
you
behind
didn't, you
me.
guys didn't notice them following you?
Never,
No,
brother,
really.
never. And I'm a hawk, man. I am a hawk. I always know who's coming in the door, who's walking out the door, who's behind me, and man, I didn't know for shit. Um,
So he starts. So he starts with the capsules. He builds a thing on the boards with that. He's making decent money with that. Saves up. Goes down to Florida. Gets two tab presses, and also a mixer. I think
right.
he got that.
Yeah,
Yeah, like the V mixer. He gets
yeah.
that.
It
Na-
would spin the powder around to
Yeah,
mix the binding agent with
yeah.
the actual powder.
Then he gets the like kilos of Winstrol, Winstrol, D-ball, Anadrol, all that stuff,
Right,
and he's making
right.
all these on these. Well, first he's doing them in caps, and then he goes to the tab press. Now,
Right.
how long does he have the tab press before they come?
If I had to guess, it was no more than a month or two. Um, because we didn't live together all that long before he got busted. It's not like we lived together for a year, 2 years. I mean, it was 6, 7 months, 8 months, maybe at the most. I'm guessing here, but it definitely wasn't even a year. And I remember him getting we moved into the nice apartment, and then the old apartment became the work apartment, and it was only like that for a couple, short months before he got popped. So yeah, I remember him telling me, and I don't personally know anything about steroids. I've never used them, but uh, apparently the Winstrol pills were like gold basically, because I guess they weren't common to have, and so when he had them, kind of, took him to the next level. Um,
I remember seeing them, and like the at that time, way back then, everybody wanted this thing called thigh D-ball and thigh Winstrol. I think it was called thigh, and the Winstrol was like a octagon yellow, and the
right,
D-ball was pink. And he had the dye to color. I mean, you couldn't, and the fucking machine stamped it and everything. You couldn't
yes,
tell the difference.
right,
You couldn't tell at all.
right. And Brian had he had bought. We had motorcycles, several cars. Um, I had a nice Acura TL with 3 TVs in it, rims, tinted windows, navigation before anyone even had navigation. Um, he had an Acura RSX that he had put 100 grand into, and this thing was, I mean, it was crazy fast. It's like when you think of an Acura RSX, you're like, why would anyone put that kind of money into a car? You might as well buy a Lamborghini or something. And he could have, but he, I mean, this thing was insane. I remember one time we got on the Blue Route in Pennsylvania from Allentown to go to the what's that mall called?
King of Prussia.
King of Prussia Mall.
Yeah.
And we got from Allentown to King of Prussia Mall in like 8 minutes. I mean, it was a straightaway, and we were going so fast that it was a blur. And somewhere on my old phone, because it was like the first camera phones that came out, that's how long ago this was, um, I was filming it, and it was just a blur, bro. This is all you saw. And I actually filmed the needle on the car was all the way around, buried, about to hit zero again. And he just, and then he went and bought a Nissan 350Z cash, and I fucking almost totaled it the first week he had it. Um, I went out with some friends and took the car, and I tried to do a fishtail around a corner, and I ended up slamming into the curb and knocking the whole wheel in. And a cop saw me, and I was drunk. So I hopped back on the highway, but by the time the cop could spin around and get me, I had made it back to the house on a wobbly wheel. And I parked the car, got in my other car, and left. And I didn't even tell him. He came home and was like, yo, someone fucked my car up. I'm like, I don't know, man.
Now, do you think you were being followed at that time?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was because that was so when he got busted, the feds, I don't say the cops, the feds actually came and talked to me. They told me flat out, they were like, we don't really care. Like, they're like, we could arrest you right now. We know you knew what he was doing. We watched you go. Oh, I have something in my beard, or am I going gray?
You can't
We
beat
watched,
father time, buddy.
yeah, we watched you go. We watched you mail packages with him. We watched you, living with him, knowing what was going on. So we could pop you if you want, but we don't want to. We want him. He's the one out blowing money. We're busting our ass for 50, 60 grand a year, and he's making that in a month. So, we're going to get him.
They said that to you?
What's that?
They said that to you?
Yeah, that was part of the conversation. So, what happened with that was, me and Brian kind of stopped talking, even though we were living together. Brian was real bent out of shape about an ex-girlfriend at the time. Her name was Melissa, and she had broken up with him. And when we started talking again, he was really upset. Oh man, I'm so broke up over this chick, blah blah blah. And Brian, at the time, just he wasn't good at meeting girls. It just wasn't his thing. You know what I mean? And I was like, bro, I got this girl that you could, you could fuck, and she'll help you get over, Melissa. And
Now, this is after he got raided?
no, this is before.
Okay.
This is before. So I'm kind of explaining to you like what led up to that.
Okay.
So I introduced him to this girl, and I said to him, I'm like, don't wife this chick, bro. I'm like, just fuck her, hang out with her, have fun, enjoy yourself. Well, within like a week of meeting her, he was like ready to move in with her. They were engaged. He bought her a ring. He was taking her shopping. I mean, it was crazy. And he actually stopped talking to me because she didn't like me because she wanted to date me, and I didn't. I mean, I fucked her, but that was it.
You sick
And
fuck.
so she would get in his head like, oh, you're the one making all this money. You don't need Ray, blah blah blah. Like, and he kind of took it, and he kind of stopped talking to me, and he was mad, I guess, at me because I had fucked her, which didn't make sense because I introduced him. But anyway, and so he started disappearing a lot, and he wouldn't even talk. I would text him sometimes for days. He wouldn't answer. No big deal, whatever. I was out doing my own thing. On a Friday night, one night, I was heading out with my girl at the time. I was dating a girl named Kendra at the time, and I was heading out with her. We were gonna go get a drink, and I was starving. I hadn't eaten, and I remember thinking like, man, if I drink, I'm gonna get fucked up. I better stop and eat. So I ended up going to a Dunkin' Donuts on 25th Street, and I'm sitting there eating a bagel and and a coffee, and these three guys walk in, and they like hawk over me, and the one was a big Samoan dude. The other one, the one was a DEA agent. Anyway, they come in, they're like, "How you doing, Ray?" And I'm like, "What's up?" And I'm thinking I'm gonna get jumped because that was the kind of life I had back then. Like, it wouldn't have been weird for me to get in a fight. And so they flashed their badges, Fed badges. I'm like, son of a bitch. They're like, "Where's your boy Brian?" I'm like, I said, any other week, if you'd asked me that, I'd be able to tell you. I said, but I have no clue. I said, he started dating this girl, and he fucking disappeared on me. And they're like, oh, Dora? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, she's a hot little piece of ass, huh? And I'm like, yeah, whatever. She's cute. So the one was a DEA agent. I think the other one was as well. And the one was a U.S. Postal Inspector. And I feel like you'd know his name, but I can't think of it. I think he had an Irish name. He was from the Philly area.
Sullivan?
Sullivan, that was it.
Yep. Yeah, he's a nice guy.
Sullivan.
No, he's a
What'd
nice
you say?
guy. He's a nice guy.
Yeah, he was really cool.
Yeah, he's very
Sullivan,
respectable.
yeah. And so they're like, well, we have a warrant for his arrest, but we don't know where he's at right now. Once we got what we needed, we stopped following him, and that was that. And now we have our warrant. And I said, honestly, I don't know where he's at. And they said, well, we have your phone tapped, we have his phone tapped. If you warn him in any way, we're going to arrest you too. And so, don't text him, don't call him, don't do anything out of the ordinary. I'm like, okay. I said, when you guys move on him, I said, I have all my clothes, all my stuff at our apartment. I said, am I going to be allowed to go get it? And they said, well, we could take you now to get your stuff. or you can wait till all this is done, and then we'll let you know, and you can go pick it up. Now, I'm not an idiot. I know that if I would have walked into that house, I wouldn't have walked out, because once I key them in and let them in and give them access, anything they find, I'm basically an accessory to at that point. Um, so I was like, I actually started having a panic attack, and I was like, "No, I'm good. I'm good. I'll come get it next week." And they're like, "All right, cool." And they let me leave. I walked out, got in my car. I ended up driving to my mom's house, um, to like calm down because my heart was racing. And I was like trying to figure out how I could warn Brian without, uh, getting myself
Implementing
in trouble.
yourself in the whole situation, right? And
Right,
they already had the warrant. They already had the warrant anyway. So I mean,
right, right.
there. I mean, in
The
that
only thing that,
case, you're going to warn
go
them
ahead.
for what? I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to warn them for
Right,
what? Oh, you're going to
right.
get yourself
Get a
jammed
warrant
up.
for manufacturing, which is one of the worst charges you can get. Manufacturing is as bad as it gets, really.
Well, money laundering's worse. If they come with
Right.
money
Well,
laundering, that's
in terms of drugs, like
yeah,
money laundering is one thing, drugs obviously are another. When you're talking about manufacturing,
yeah.
you know,
With the
uh,
tab press, yeah,
right, right.
yeah,
That's bad.
yeah.
Um, so I was like, I could warn him. I said, but it's not going to change anything. I started thinking like, well, maybe he could call a lawyer, at least be prepared. But I didn't end up warning him, and he pulled into the parking garage in, I think he was in the 350Z. They barricaded him in, pulled their guns out. He had to get out, lay on the ground, the whole nine. And he went in. He had to clear the safe, and there was a safe in there with a lot of money. All our clothes got taken, all our TVs, all our furniture, everything. I didn't have anything but the clothes on my back. I think that was in August that he got popped, and it was August, September, October, November, December. 5 months. I had one pair of shorts, one pair of shoes, and two T-shirts. And they ended up not letting me go back for my stuff. I guess the owner of the place that we were renting was like not having it. So I ended up calling in a favor to a guy, a cop that I was sort of friends with at the time, and he called whoever he called. I don't know. He ended up pulling up to my house. Um, Popped the back of the police car and pulled out a bunch of bags of clothes. Well, I'm all excited, like, oh my God, I finally have clothes. It's fucking winter. I'm freezing. I go bring all these bags in, and most of them weren't my clothes. They ended up being Brian's clothes, and me and him are completely different sizes. I'm taller. I weigh more. I got bigger feet. So I ended up with like a couple things of my own and the rest of his, but it got me through the winter. And as I was going through all the jeans, this is how much money this guy was making. I found $6,000 in spread throughout different pairs of jeans, 500 here, 1,000 there, and I lived on that for until I got back on my feet. Uh, and ironically, the probably 3 or 4 days before he got busted, which I remember this. When I was talking about the previous case he had, the state case where we were co-defendants, that was actually his fault. I got in trouble for some shit that he fucked up for me, and so we got in a big fight because I said, "Listen, motherfucker," I said, you know, "I'm facing 14 years, and it's your fucking fault." I said, "You're making all this goddamn money." I said, "I want you to pay for my lawyer." He wasn't happy, but he left 10 grand for me in a closet. And he wasn't there. He was gone because we weren't hanging out no more. We were kind of beefing. So I stopped by. I grabbed that 10 grand. And thankfully, I actually didn't pay a lawyer yet. Um, he, when he got popped, I had that 10 grand. And I lived off of that, ironically, until December. Um, paying bills, getting food, things like that. When that other 6 grand came, so then I lived off that, and then by that time I was, couple not long after that I ended up getting a regular job. I think I was fucking delivering pizza or some shit.
Yeah, because you were saying before you came on that you were walking around in like shorts, like the same shorts for like a month,
Yeah, I had. I mean,
and
I
that
was.
this was
It was
after he
about.
got
It was about
raided and
5 months.
taken.
It was about 5 months, bro. From
Yeah,
August till December when I got my clothes back, I had one pair of khaki shorts, one pair of shoes, and the T-shirt that I had on when the feds came to talk to me that night, and one T-shirt that I kept in my car because I always kept an extra T-shirt in case you sweat or spill something, and that was all I had from August till December. Um, and then he got popped, and he stopped talking to me again. It's very weird. I think he gets, every time he gets arrested, I think he gets mad that I don't have a criminal record. I don't have any felony record, nothing. I've never been convicted of anything. I think he gets mad sometimes about that. Not this time because we're cool now. I talked to him. This was all him. He has nothing to be bitter about. But like before, me and him were hanging out all the time. We'd go to dinner every day. We'd go to movies every day, and like he was kind of the one bankrolling that. So I feel like he kind of would think, well, man, I'm in prison and you were living like a king, but I wasn't really living like a king. I had my own thing. I was making my own money, and of course, if my best friend is making 50, 100 grand a month and he wants to take me out, I'm not gonna say no. Um,
No, I remember
so
coming down to see you guys, and you weren't like balling out or anything like that. I mean,
no,
he was
no,
buying shit left and right, but
right,
I remember there was when I came to talk to him, there was like it was almost like a 5 gallon jug of like water that you would put in, but there was like tens and twenties in this big ass jug in his house.
yep. That
Remember
was a
that?
spare change jar.
And I remember like you were pulling out of that to go do shit. It's not like you had
Yep.
like a pile like he did. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I didn't. I was doing my own thing, making regular money. I just paying the bills. I could go out. I didn't have to clock in at a regular job. You know what I mean? And but yeah, Brian was never like, yo, let me bring you in on this. I'm making 100 grand a month. I'll help you make 20 grand a month. Never. He never wanted me to be a part of it. Not because he cared,
He
just
just didn't
because he
want to
was
give up
very,
the kind of the greed.
very
Yeah.
greedy person. There's multiple times in Brian's life where he's made millions of dollars, and I've been without a car, and he wouldn't even buy me a beater for 1 grand. Like, I'm not even joking. Um, but I don't hold it against him. It is what it is. You know, uh, my life took a pretty strange trajectory by being friends with him. It caused me a lot of talks with the feds. I've been arrested multiple times, and I've never gotten in trouble on my own. That's not to say I've never done anything that could result in me getting in trouble. But I used to get in a lot of fights, things like that. But I've never been arrested on my own. It's always been something that Brian caused or Brian did, um, or started, initiate. Something that he ended up getting me into that caused some shit, for the most part. Um, but I don't hold anything against him. He's had a pretty crazy life. It would probably make a good movie, a good story, or a good book. So would mine in a different way. Um,
So what all did they take from him? Obviously, they took the tab presses,
right.
all
Oh,
the chemicals.
so the tab press. When I ended up talking to the feds, I was unaware of this, but they actually didn't know, um, about. It's not to say they didn't know about the tab press at the time. I didn't know that they knew about the tab press. I only found out later about the guy who was working with the feds, which I was actually informed by you. I didn't know. Um, what happened was, they didn't know where it was. And so when we moved into the new apartment, they thought that that was where everything was. So when they got a warrant and they were waiting for Brian, they're thinking, hey, when we go in here, everything's going to be here. But what actually would have happened if they went in was they would have found nothing. Um, in the conversation we had, I ended up mentioning the other apartment, and they're like, "What other apartment? What are you talking
And
about?"
you're
And I'm like,
assuming that they already know about this.
"I'm assuming they already know,
Yeah.
right? I'm not ratting. I just am like talking
Yeah, you're
as
like,
if,
fuck,
hey,
you've been following us. You have a warrant. How could
right,
you possibly not know that there's another spot, right?
exactly." So, I end up mentioning the other apartment, and they're like, wait, what other apartment?" I'm like, "The work apartment where everything's at." And they were like, "Where?" And I'm like, his old apartment, And they're like, "Hold on." They flip open the phone and they're like, "We need another warrant, blah blah." And I actually watched them pretty much get another, or at least start the process of getting another warrant on the old place they didn't even know. And that's where they found, I don't know how much or what, but they found pill presses, cap machines, kilos and kilos and kilos of powders of all different steroids.
Now, were
Like,
you there when they raided that apartment?
I was not there. No, I left that day, and I didn't go back to where we had lived at the time. I didn't go back to that city for years. Like, I left that night,
You're like,
and
fuck this, right?
Yeah, that was it. Um, I ended up in bad. I ended up moving in with my girl after that. Whatever. And so yeah, he got popped. We didn't talk for a while again, and he gets out, and we started talking again. This was about 7 years ago, I'd say, 8 years maybe. I'd say 8 years maybe. He gets out, and we start talking again, just as friends, and uh, he starts up again, but not with steroids, with other shit. Um, do you want to continue? Want to get into this or
Well,
no?
we'll do that one in the next one. So he goes away. How much time did he get for the steroids?
I think he ended up doing 3 or 4 years. I don't know what he got sentenced to.
And they took the motorcycles, the cars, any cash they could find,
Right. I
powders.
actually had a motorcycle at the time bought with money from him. It was in his name, but it was the bike that I used because we go riding together. And then they actually came and took that too.
They
um,
went to your house and they took it from you.
right,
Yeah.
yeah. I actually had parked it somewhere else, and they found it, and yeah. So yeah, they he opened a safe. If I had to guess, there was probably 250,000 in the safe. Um,
Yeah. What were you talking about in the green room about when I had you on the video? They sawed open the safe or something. Didn't you say they saw? They,
no. Brian had to actually open the safe like while they're surrounding him. So yeah, imagine that. You know that all your money you've worked hard for, worked hard, quote unquote, you're about to pop open and hand over. So yeah, he actually had to open the safe, and I remember the safe was on the floor next to his shoes, um, and all his clothes, everything. They took all the furniture, and the funny thing is, I had in my room, I had my own TV, my own bed, my own clothes, everything that was not bought with his money. It was bought with my own money, and I didn't get none of my stuff back.
you got none of that back.
Never got it back, man.
Wow.
I had piles of shoes, like brand new shoes in boxes, clothes.
They took your
I had a
shoes.
big screen. What's up?
They took your shoes.
Shoes, everything, bro.
What
I
the
had
fuck?
nothing.
Wow.
Um, being friends with Brian, I love him to death, man. I still do, and he'll see this one day, and I don't care. Um, Being friends with Brian has never benefited me anything other than a couple steak dinners and some movies.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's given me. I've been arrested because of him. I've been followed by feds because of him. Feds have shown up at my house at least 3 or 4 occasions. Even his last arrest recently, feds showed up at my house. Um, and it's not, I've never made 50 grand, 100 grand a month. I've never bought a brand new car cash. So like, it's never brought me anything but stress and a headache, but I love him. It is
Now,
what it
now
is.
your anxiety. I know how bad it is. Do
Yeah.
you think that the anxiety that you have is due to all this shit that you had to go through with Parker?
It is partly because my initial arrest is what really sparked my panic attacks, and being followed by cops, and hiding out when I got a warrant for $100,000 warrant, $100,000 bail, in a federal, or not a federal, a state warrant for me. Um, and that was his fault that I got arrested. 100%. It wasn't my fault at all. It was his fault, that the thing that occurred to get me arrested. And he never apologized. He never was like, "Yo, man, that was my fuck up, my bad, my slip up." Nothing. So yeah, that was the catalyst for my anxiety, and then being followed all the time, which I didn't know we were being followed. But then, like, what happens is you become paranoid. Once he got busted, I'm like, man, they were following us all the time. And the state case that I had, I gotta say this in defense of Brian. Even though Brian slipped up and did something stupid that got me in trouble, the prosecutors and the cops 95% lied, manufactured evidence, threatened witnesses and victims to testify against me, um, followed me everywhere, had my phone tapped.
And now, was this a county case or a state case?
This was a state case. This
Oh,
was
it was. They brought it to the state, not the county.
Well, the county does handle state cases. Each county has their own state prosecutor.
Okay.
In New Jersey, I don't know if they do it the same in all states. So if you, let's say you get hit someone in the head with a bat, you get arrested, you go to that county jail, and you go to that county court to fight that case. But each county has a prosecutor that is appointed by the state to handle that county. So when you get arrested in that county, it's the state of New Jersey versus Raymond Michael, So yeah, that was that, and so that's part of my story that you and I are going to get into on another one where.
Yeah, we'll go through your story. Yeah, and
literally
because you got some good stories too.
Oh
Just right now,
my stories are actually crazier than his, but in a different way. Because like Brian did what he did, and it's an amazing story to see how much money he made and the kind of life he was living. But he did it. Mine are different because I actually was completely innocent and was fighting for my life. Between the multiple cases I had that were false. I was falsely arrested. I was facing over 25 years.
And what part of New Jersey are you in? What county in New Jersey?
In Warren County now.
And where was your first case? Where was the case you were fighting for? Like in Warren County?
In Warren County.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So we'll definitely get into that, and some other stuff that's coming up. So thanks for your take on Operation Raw Deal with Brian Parker, and we'll get together soon and keep it going.
Yeah, no problem. We'll get into all the other stuff. There's way more stories with Brian. This was the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, and then we'll do yours. So we got a lot of episodes here with Raymond Michael. Do you want to say your business?
Yeah, sure.
And I want to say one thing. Ray is very good at credit repair. So if you have a low credit 580, I recommended him to 20, 30 people, and he's got it done quick, inexpensive. He's on point, and he's really good. So if you got 550 credit, 540 credit, 520 credit, this guy can probably get you up 50 points, 70 points in a matter of 6 weeks. He makes the calls. He knows how to beat them in the head. I've never seen anything like it. He's good. He helped me.
I actually just did. I'm not going to say her name
because
I'm not sure what kind of detail she would want me to get into, but you're going to actually see her advertising for me sometime soon. But what I will say is I just did the credit of one of the people from the show Mob Wives, and I got her score up 95 points in 2 weeks. And ironically, she just moved down by you from up by me.
Oh, yeah? Interesting.
And so yeah, my website is clearfinancialsolution.com.
So clearfinancialsolution.com.
Clearfinancialsolution.com. I'm actually launching the website tomorrow.
Okay.
I've obviously been doing credit repair for about 5 years, but I'm just revamping, making it bigger and better, more professional. Not that I wasn't professional, but I just, you make the money.
And by the time this goes up, it won't be tomorrow because it's got to be edited by the editing guy. So this will probably be up in 2 days. So by the time this is up, your site will be up and launched.
Just in case it's not, in case people see this and they go to the site and it's not up. That's all. I've spent a lot of money to take my business to the next level. So as good as I've done and as good as I've been doing, it's only going to be better from here. I also do, so that's called Clear Financial Solutions. I also own a place called Vivid Reflections, which is currently in Easton, Pennsylvania. And what we do is mostly permanent cosmetics, but there is a sort of a med spa aspect to it. My main thing that I do is called scalp micropigmentation. So if a man is thinning or bald, I actually do a tattoo, and it's just thousands and thousands of little dots. And when I'm all done, it looks like they have a full head of hair, but it's just shaved. So you have like a 5 o'clock shadow on your head. And it looks incredible. To the naked eye, you cannot tell the difference. And I've been doing that about 5 years as well. I dabble in some other things, but those are my two main businesses. And, I'm pretty grateful and blessed that, they pay the bills and I don't have to wake up and go clock in for anyone else.
Yeah. In the future, I want to do one on how you do that with the hair because a lot of people have asked me about that. And and you own it, so that'd be a little bit off of all the indictment and arrest, just a little bit something different. Not just Raymond Michael, who's always involved in some type of law issue.
Yeah.
So, all right, we got more to come, and thank you for coming in through video. And maybe one day I can get you on a plane and have you sitting on a chair, but
Someday.
the odds of that, I don't know. I guess you could get in a car with a
Even
bunch
if I
of...
have to drive down, we'll make it happen.
Yeah, sooner or later you'll get down here.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Ray.
Yeah, have a wonderful day, man.
You
Talk to
too.
soon.